Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and evening to everyone. Welcome to tonight's TSMU Q&A, and we have a very special guest today. You've seen her in the past on TSM Q&As, but I wanted to give a can't even talk, give a warm welcome to Emily Krol. Emily, please introduce yourself and share us a fun fact about yourself as well.
Ooh, a fun fact. Well, I'm Emily. Lovely to see you all, meet you all for the first time, maybe. A fun fact about me, maybe that I don't know, I'm from Long Island. That's not really fun. I work at Lenovo. It's all good. I don't know. I don't have any fun facts.
How about any favorite hobbies? Cool hobbies?
Favorite
Anything you've picked
hobby.
up over the
Oh,
pandemic?
I see where you're going here, Sky. Um, I sing opera. That's a
Whoa!
good one. I sing with the North Carolina Opera. I'm in the chorus, so I like to, just stand in the back and sing my high notes.
That's awesome. Actually, that's a really fun fact. I feel like you might have mentioned it during one of our meetings, maybe, but I think that's super cool. I don't think we hear a lot of that. Have you done any like shows in the past or anything new? I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, I've done 4 operas with the North Carolina Opera, and we were, of course, planning to do some more over 2020. They were canceled, unfortunately, but we're really excited to get back to the music later this year and into 22. So um, hopefully we'll get to do one of those soon.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. Well, here's to normalcy and hopefully everyone coming back soon. But let's dive right back into just the questions. We have a couple of people coming to ask some interesting questions and wanting to learn more about you. First and foremost, I believe Panda Turtle has a voice question. Hi, Panda Turtle. How's it
Hello.
going? It's been a while.
Good. Are you guys doing well?
Doing great. Good to hear
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah, I was curious, has there been any like marketing strategies that you feel like were really surprising and how like successful they were?
That's a good question. I I will say like something that we tried out for the first time that was kind of like a passing thought almost when we're trying to make sure that we're keeping our alliance partners like maybe an Intel or a Microsoft or an AMD and our retailers happy, and we want to make sure we're driving people over to websites where they can purchase Legion. We tested out doing a chatbot in our live streams, and that ranges from like with TSM when we do virtual meet and greets with TSM all the way to like if we're doing something on our own as a brand. So it just fit really seamlessly within the platform, of course, and it just was something that like hadn't occurred to us. It's so simple, something so simple hadn't occurred to us before the pandemic, really, and we were able to implement that, and we saw a lot of success with that.
That's cool. Thanks for your time.
Of course, thank you for your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Panda. And of course, I'd love to remind everyone if you're interested in asking any questions to the amazing Emily, please make sure to join the Discord at TSMU and ask away in the Ask Stream Questions section. Let's dive into another question. I believe we have one text question from Ken. Ken, hey, how are you doing? I wanted to say, he said, would you give any advice on to where to start in the marketing field?
Ooh, that's a great question. I will say that I got my start in marketing and my background in marketing in what we call marketing operations. And so, marketing operations, basically, the function of that group is to handle all of the marketing processes and whatever that would mean for any company. So, of course, in marketing, you're hiring vendors to do different tasks for you, whether that's create new assets and videos and things like that, or if it's a TSM or somebody like that. The marketing operations team handles like all of those payment processes. They handle all of our claiming processes when we're like working with our alliance partners. And so it was a really, really fantastic way for me to get like a base level understanding of marketing. Because truthfully, I didn't study marketing in college. And so I was able to really get the hands-on knowledge that I needed through working in marketing operations and just understanding how all of those processes work and how we interact as a marketing organization. And now, I was able to build from there. So understanding the processes is really important, I'll say. So if you are looking to get your foot in the door, maybe that's something that you can try out if you're entry level.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great thing. I think for me, I'd love to understand on your perspective of things how important it is because you're creating or working with these processes. You're also working with other departments. So communication has to be super, super strong there. What has been something for you that has been very, the best way to say it? What's the best way to work with other departments? What do you think are core values that we should really value in terms of working with those teams?
Yeah, I will say I'm super motivated by friendships and relationships and just speaking with people. And of course, in the pandemic, getting like on video calls with people. So whether it's working externally with one of the partners like TSM, where we're constantly needing to collaborate. And I know the partnership managers like Sky and Alec and Beth, shout out to you guys if you're watching. They are, of course, collaborating behind the scenes with their groups and, giving updates to me where I'm doing the same thing on my side. But I find the best way to do things a lot of the time if we're doing a big campaign, for example, is just to have time with everybody, get everybody into a room, whether that's a virtual room or a physical room where you're together. Project trackers are super important. Keeping on task and on a timeline is super important. So having project management skills as a baseline, and then of course, like relationship skills on top of that, just makes for a very easy collaboration with other groups.
Yeah, great. And I think those are the great ways to definitely just track everything because we're all, it could be crazy sometimes. We have another text question as well from Ken. He wanted to ask, has there been any hiccups afterwards that improved the partnership with TSM? If so, how did it improve the partnership?
That I'm sorry, I think I might have misunderstood.
Yeah.
Improved the partnership or have proven the partnership?
I think improving the partnership. Has there anything
Got it.
that you've ever run into that you're like, oh crap, that happened? How do I fix that? And how do I, strengthen that bond, team friendship, if anything?
Yes. Well, I'll give two examples. First, Sky, you mentioned in your Q&A, which is so funny. And so there was a situation where we were doing some stream shout outs with a retailer who has a long name. And some of the streamers had, mispronounced their name. And so we had to work together in order to rectify the situation. And of course, TSM was very upfront and honest with me. They explained the situation. I was able to, of course, go back and explain to the retailer what happened. We all had a laugh about it. Of course, we fixed the situation and all was good. But in addition to that, I think, our first year of our partnership, which crazy to think that I've been on this partnership since the inception, since the first year. And so it was our first time, I think, or TSM's first time doing meet and greets in that same capacity. And so originally our meet and greets were 3 hours long. And so we had to figure out how to work with people like Myth, for example, who of course his time is super valuable. And we want to make sure that he's having a good time and that he's entertained. We wanted to make sure that we're setting enough time for him to have some breaks, some alone time, get away from some crowds, while also, of course, like interacting with fans and being on in terms of, interacting with everyone. And I want to say performing, but that's not the right word. This picture you just saw is of our Savage Stream Challenge in 2019. That's what I mean by performing. We did some content with him. So doing some content, interacting with fans while also balancing like time for your mental health and time to just like take a breather for 3 hours long. I think we really had to work together on that, and eventually we found our stride.
Yeah, that's honestly a great picture. We also have Mark Hubbard that's also featured in that photo, who is also not wearing a TSM shirt. So I'm calling you out there. But
Yeah.
I think it's really important, especially when we're working through like crazy events or just any campaigns. Mental health is always a huge value where sometimes like the grind is important, but you got to take that one like hold up, let me take a break and let me take a breather. So totally align with you there. And I think it's really, really important for us to really hone in on that.
For sure.
Yeah, and then we have another next question. So, how did you get your first job in the industry? What was the experience like? And do you have any questions for others on landing that job?
Yeah, yeah, good one. I will say, like in the gaming industry, this is my first job. In the technology industry, I started with Lenovo as a laser. That is an acronym, and I will just do a shameless plug for the laser program because it is an absolutely amazing program. It stands for the Lenovo Accelerated Sales Rotational Program, and that is actually how Mark Hubbard, who you just saw in that photo, and I both came into Lenovo. So obviously it is a sales rotation program. They typically accept about 15 recent graduates. It's a program that is specifically for recent grads. And then they train you, they'll put you in a strategic business rotation where you can learn about other areas of the business. They'll rotate you around the sales floor so you can learn all about different aspects of sales and selling into different markets and companies that have different needs. And then you're eventually you become a sales rep. And so when I joined Lenovo, I was actually really, really upfront with my interviewers that I had a degree in game design and I wanted to make an impact in gaming at Lenovo. So thankfully, they were super receptive of that. I was nervous whether that honesty would cost me the opportunity or not, but thankfully, they were really receptive. They believed in the vision that I had. So I joined Laser, I did my training, I did my strategic business rotation, and from there, I actually ended up never going to sales. I was taken into the marketing organization. So worked my marketing ops role for a couple of years, and then this job was created, opened up, and I've been in it ever since.
Yeah, that's an amazing adventure. So now we actually have a Colin Bell Bellum. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thanks so much for having me and for putting this whole event on. It's really exciting getting to meet people who are in the industry and ask them questions directly. And so, Emily, I have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really creative and innovative words in this description about you, but I don't feel like I can understand what exactly your role is and what your day-to-day job is working at Lenovo.
Yeah, I'm happy to clarify. So my title obviously is pretty long. Wheels has got it up here. Gaming Strategic Marketing Manager for Lenovo North America. It is a mouthful. So typically, if I'm just speaking with someone for the first time, or if I'm doing a video for social, something like that, a lot of times I'll just paraphrase as the Legion Brand Marketing Manager because that's pretty much what I do. So I am focused on brand marketing. So really, if you think about if you're aware of like the marketing funnel where we've got like awareness at the top and then at the bottom of this funnel, you're pushing people down into conversion and making sales. So everything that I do is at the very, very top of that funnel. So awareness level. So we use our partnerships like TSM, which I get to manage on a day-to-day basis. Of course, we've got our global partnership with Apex Legends Global Series that I'm involved with from time to time. And so I just manage how the Legion brand shows up in the US and Canada to boil it down even further.
Super cool. So you're on the top. So like at what point are you talking directly to, I guess, people you're trying to create partnerships with? Are you talking directly to people or is it more just organizations in general? How would you how would you talk about that?
Yeah. I first of all, I think that gaming, I'm sorry, excuse me. I think that community is such an important aspect of the gaming industry and like what makes games and this audience and the people who play games so unique. So I think it's crucially important that we are at events, and that it's us at those booths. And so like you're actually talking to me or our product managers like Mark or like Rex Stover, who we've got to get on here eventually. And we're real people who work at Lenovo, so we're on the grounds chatting with people and getting your feedback, hearing what you're liking and not liking, and talking to you directly there. But also we've got the Legion gaming community, which is run by I think last week's Q&A star Ben Green. So of course Ben and I are interacting at least on a weekly basis so that I can hear what's going on in the community, what they're planning, and how they're interacting directly with Legion fans. And then of course, like through social interaction as well, I feel like we get a good understanding of how people are liking the content, especially with TSM. Your audience, TSM's audience, is so engaged and loves chiming in on things. So I feel like we always have direct feedback from our audience, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think you're definitely creating more awesome content right here now at TSMU. But this is, I guess, goes off. You mentioned that you're an opera singer, which I was like, that's so cool. I want to do something as cool as that. And also like having a high voice and a high voice range. And that's something that I struggle with is like, how am I being perceived by other people, especially for having a more feminine voice? And I was wondering, has that impacted you at all, like in trying to create these partnerships? And how do you deal with those challenges?
Wow, really, really interesting question. Thank you for asking all of these questions. It's something that I actually decided to study in college alongside gaming, and it was really just because I loved music and I felt like I knew myself and I knew that I do best and I function best. I'm the most productive when I have a creative outlet like singing. And so, in order to keep it in my life to the same level that it was in high school, where I was doing like choir and theater and things like that, I decided to double major. And so I, was classically
awesome.
trained throughout college. And then my voice teacher from college is actually the chorus master of the North Carolina Opera. So when I moved here officially from New York, he was like, great, let's do opera now. So, I don't think that there's any, in that same, back to your question, I don't think that there's any harm in femininity. I think that, it's a secret superpower in a way. I think, women can be super approachable and, we're great at creating relationships. And so, of course, there's always that like sneaking fear just because I know this industry, I've studied this industry, and I know the horror stories. There's always that fear that something bad will happen or that someone will perceive me in a bad way, or they're not going to take me seriously. But thankfully in my experience it's been nothing but positivity. Like the TSM team in particular is so awesome. They've got a super diverse group of people over there, so everyone I've come into contact with has been super accepting, which is really wonderful.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt, just to add to that as well, I think Emily has amazing points in terms of the gaming community in general, right? We're seeing, in a sense, inclusivity eventually, and again, it's not just there yet. However, I think you know there is welcoming arms in that sense. So I would say don't discourage yourself in terms of letting anyone judge you or say anything about you. Your skills, your talents, and your passion is what is really important, and let that be the fuel to your fire.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for asking and for listening. It's great to chat with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey.
Awesome. So those are some amazing, amazing questions. And I think it's really important for us to really highlight some of those outside of just marketing and gaming, but the sense of community and also inclusivity in the space. So thank you, Bell Bellum, for the amazing questions. We'll transition over to another call-in as well. Dalam, I'm sorry if I am not pronouncing your name properly, but welcome, Dalam, to the call. Hi, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. I just go by Dale, by the way.
Okay, Dale.
Great to meet you.
Awesome. Dale, what kind of questions do you have?
So my very first question is something I'm trying to figure out myself. So do you really need to go to college to do what you're doing now?
You mean college in general, or do you need to study what I'm doing now in college?
Like a degree.
I would say yes, it would benefit you tremendously to have a college degree, at least an undergraduate degree, to work at a corporate company like Lenovo. Of course, I've actually been at Lenovo for my whole professional career. Like since I graduated college, I actually just had my 4-year anniversary at Lenovo, and so I've been here. So I can't necessarily speak to what it's like at another company or a smaller business,
Yeah.
but certainly for a Fortune 500 company like Lenovo, they're definitely going to be looking for at least an undergraduate degree. And then as you move up the ranks, something like an MBA or some kind of master's degree would also greatly benefit you just in selection processes and things like that.
Okay. Well, I mean, that kind of tied into my second question. Well, the second question was, how likely are you hired as someone who went to college to get a degree over someone who has no degree but qualified skills? So I'm assuming it kind of fits into what you were just saying, where you choose
Yeah,
someone
well,
who has the degree for it to show for it.
yeah, I will say, like, in terms of the hiring process at Lenovo, like, I don't personally see, because it's such a big company, like, of course, we've got some HR processes in place that prevent me from seeing the first pass of applicants. Like when applicants are coming to me, at least in my role, and how I interact with new hires, it would be like at an interview phase where they've already kind of passed the first few rounds. So if there were a special case, some kind of thing that happened where I was able to, refer someone, I think of course it would just depend on that person's skill set and experience. I think, like I said, it's important to have that undergrad degree, but if the experience is extremely relevant and proven and you've got some data to back it up, then I can't speak on behalf of Lenovo HR, of course, but I
Yeah.
don't see why.
Okay. And then my third question is, as someone who's going into web development and business marketing as a career, what's your best advice to get connections with everyone in your industry?
First of all, being on this Discord and interacting with the TSMU community is top tier. Amazing. Shameless plug, but seriously, what Ali is doing here and Sky and everyone else who is helping out with TSMU is an amazing resource. I know they're posting jobs in there and it's like its own networking pool. So definitely take advantage of that as a resource. LinkedIn is decent. It's a decent way to connect with others. But also you could just get out there in the world and do some meetups. Like there are hopefully meetups coming back where you can do some networking, like with other young adults, maybe
Yeah.
people who are in similar situations where they're starting out in their careers, they've maybe gotten a really cool job, and you can make those connections. And of course, staying in touch with people that you meet along your way is super important as well.
Okay. Well, that's it. And thanks so much for answering those questions.
Thank you so much for asking. Great to meet you.
Yep, you too.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's great to actually have so many resources within the space, right? I think starting out, even for me, I was like, what's a LinkedIn? Do I need to make a LinkedIn? It looks like a Facebook to me. But I think it's great to hone into those conversations and also like create those relationships as well. So I think those are amazing, amazing places. And hashtag no plug here as well. But TSMU has been an amazing platform, I think, for a lot of people in terms of being able to meet other like-minded individuals and be able to talk to other industry professionals as well. So really exciting stuff there. Cool. So we have a text question from Andrew. Andrew asks, do you think a team or influencer has to be an authentic user of a product in order to effectively promote it?
That's a really good one as well. Great, great questions all around tonight. I just want to compliment all of these questions because they've been wonderful. I think it is important to have that authenticity, especially if you come into contact with someone, an influencer who is already using and enjoying the product, like that is light years better. But in the event that that doesn't happen, which is sort of often, as would happen with anyone who's doing marketing. You definitely want to give that person a little bit of time to live with the product, understand the product. I mean, PCs at this point are, everyone pretty much knows how to use them, but you gotta try out the Legion and be a little bit familiar with it to know what makes it unique from other computers, especially things like the keyboard and just the experience of using a Legion laptop and a Legion desktop, which I've got like all my Legion gear all around me. It's important for them to have that experience and know what they like about it so that they can confidently speak to it rather than just like saying things that are really generic about a computer or that they think somebody else might want to hear. It is important to get that authentic enjoyment of the product.
Yeah, I think it definitely is important to have that genuine feel when we have those marketing campaigns. My question to you there, just to follow up, is how do you onboard talent that aren't necessarily as involved with the Legion products? How do they learn more about it? How do you basically teach them like this is product, this is how you use it, and this is the best way to touch base and talk about it?
Yeah, when you join Lenovo, for example, at least in my experience going through the laser program, we received in-depth product training. So there are product managers like Mark Hubbard who like actually came in and presented to us the products themselves and told us what about them made them so great. They of course passed them around, like let us touch and feel and understand the product and the uses of that product. So we got a really nice baseline understanding. And I think for people who join Lenovo, that of course is happening outside of Laser as well. But even just meeting with our product managers, even on a one-on-one basis, like I've got a weekly meeting with the product managers to make sure that I've always got the latest on what's going on with the product, because of course, like I don't have just an endless stream of new Legion products coming in the door on a daily basis. But they're able to give me those updates. I've been lucky enough to, of course, like have Legion PCs and work off Legion PCs, which I think is very important for me to understand the product and be able to market it. So we try to make it available to people, and just having that time with the product managers, the people who are like making the product almost behind the scenes, that is super important.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially, at Lenovo, you guys are working really hard to make sure that everybody is in terms of learning the product as well. So everyone feels connected as much as they can in that sense. So just a quick reminder as we take a quick pause here. Everyone, if you have any questions, please make sure to stop by the discord.gg/TSMU and ask away. Learn more about the marketing side, learn more about Lenovo Legion, and learn more about Emily. So just a reminder to everyone on that end. And for that, we'll transition into the next question here. So we have another question from, I believe, no one has a name for the specific one, but are there any particular campaigns or projects that you've worked on in your career that you're especially proud of?
Ooh, yes. First of all, 2019 was just so much fun going to the events in 2019, like PAX West and TwitchCon, and the activations that we were able to execute at those events, like the Savage Stream Challenge that we did with Myth. And at PAX West, we did a Legion trivia truck, which was so cool. Those are always like standout highlights of my career. But almost like more subdued, something that I wasn't having like a gallivanting experience across the country for 2020. Of course, we were tasked with bringing the same level of experience to our audience and have that same level of fun and engagement and participation from an audience, and even just getting the audience there. We had to make everything virtual, and we saw a lot of success. And Sky, I know that you said the stream with Wardell was one of your favorites. I absolutely loved the one with Imperial Hal, the Lenovo Legends tournament. That was so cool getting to organize that with one of our agencies, Future. And, we had the qualifying rounds where people were going head to head against each other. And just the best part of the whole thing was at the end when Hal was streaming, and then he started talking with Kona about the interview that they were going to do, and everybody got to see behind the scenes. I mean, it was just so funny and silly, and those definitely stand out as proud moments as well, because we had to think on our toes, and I think we pulled it off.
Yeah, that was a really great activation. I remember that one as well. And I also remember we were dubbed and also graced with Keikona's presence. So that was very exciting. Shouts out. I know Allie was also part of that conversation. We were hyped in the behind the scenes. So I have an additional text question here from Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much for your questions. You touched on how you didn't study marketing in college. Did you get interested in it after college? What sparked that interest?
Yeah, another great question. So I didn't study, like you said, I didn't study marketing in college. Of course, um, there were aspects of marketing that were kind of built into my game design degree, because I went to High Point University. The degree is actually called Game and Interactive Media Design. Amazing program, and they really approach it from a well-rounded standpoint. So it's not a computer science major. A lot of people think that it falls into like the School of Technology or computer science, but it's actually a communications major. And so you're taking, your basic communications classes in addition to a really wide range of gaming classes that you can customize like based on your interests. So we were learning like the entire process of creating a game and bringing it to market. And so of course that would include the marketing as well. So I felt like my interest was a little piqued when we were learning about that, and what people want to see in terms of a game, what makes a game exciting, and what would be cool in terms of marketing. But I also used to work for 17 magazine. They had a program, I don't know that they're still doing it, but it was called the 17 Social Club. And it was like back in 2013 when influencers were not really a thing yet. It was like the first influencer thing that I ever took part in. So they would like send us products and we would have to post reviews on our social media. So I knew that I loved working with 17. Sometimes I would like host events with my friends, and they would send me this whole party kit. So it was so fun doing all of that with 17. So like those two experiences combined, like learning about it in class in a sense, and then working with 17 magazine as like an influencer, I'm putting in big air quotes. I knew that I would be interested in marketing, and then my strategic business rotation in laser is what really exposed me to the marketing organization at Lenovo, and how I was able to really get involved and learn learn about marketing and get involved in marketing.
Actually, I'm kind of curious. What was like the best product or the coolest product that you were sent from your 17 days?
Well, what's so funny is it was like 9 or 10 years ago, like to the day. My friends were just talking about it in the group chat, and I know some of them are watching. But we did a ABC Family premiere party, and so they sent me like this DVD that had like upcoming looks, like a sneak peek at all of the ABC Family summer shows, which is now like freeform. But all the summer shows for ABC Family, we got to watch like a sneak peek, like 10 minutes of each. And then they had all this cool merch that was themed around all the different shows. And we just got to have this like really cool party and just hang out and take a bunch of fun pictures, eat a bunch of snacks, and enjoy. It was really great. I would say that's the most memorable.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. I think I would have enjoyed that as much as well. So I'm a little
Yes,
jealous.
it's so cool.
Yeah, so we have another call-in as well. Panda Turtle, welcome back. Hello. How's it going again?
Hello.
Hello.
I was curious. I was curious how important like looking at like competitors when it came to marketing, or like if there were ever like times where it was hard for you to like think of new ideas and how you were able to like refresh your mind, I guess.
Yeah, I'll approach that from like two different angles. So, first of all, of course, it's super important for us to understand what our competitors are doing with their marketing and how they're presenting their brand. So, I'm following all those brands on social and seeing what they're doing, but also, we'll compile images and things that, we'll receive, especially like from agencies that we work with, like information about how other brands, and of course they're receiving the same thing as well, but how other brands are bringing their products to market. So you can kind of start to see trends over time in how the market is evolving and what colors people are really using. And it's so important in your product development and in your marketing to find like an empty hole or like an empty spot that your product and your message can fill. So it's important to understand what everyone else is doing so that you can stand out from the crowd. On the other hand, I will say, like at events, for example, or even when I am just not working an event, I'm just Emily in my personal life, like walking around having I'm constantly on the lookout for what other brands are doing, whether that's like in a convention or in a sporting arena or just like in a restaurant, like stores, how other brands are presenting themselves. I feel like you're constantly like on the lookout and doing research and seeing what else is working for other people.
That's cool. Has there ever been a time where you saw like a trend that Lenovo like was doing that you saw another company kind of like picking up on as well?
Yeah, I will say, like, do you mean okay, like an execution, like something that we physically did that, others followed suit, or like the way that we look, the way that we kind of present ourselves?
I guess I wasn't really thinking. I guess either one would be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Lenovo, in a lot of sense, was at the forefront of like this new community feel. Like at the time when the Legion gaming community started, there were honestly like a few different questions that we had internally about whether it would work, and it totally did work. And now we're seeing communities pop up all over the esports space and people wanting to connect with each other and interact with each other. And of course, like Discord servers have always existed, and streamers have their own communities. And so bringing that community feel and having such an engaging experience, especially to the level that Ben and his team manage it, I mean, they do an amazing job. We've definitely seen more of that in the market since the Legion gaming community's inception.
Well, thank you for your time. It was really cool listening.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Panda. Also, I really like your icon. There is a panda with a turtle body on it. It is cute as heck.
I'm gonna have
But
to check it out.
also, shouts out to Ben as well for running the community side of the Twitch stream and just overall Legion community. I think it's great to have that type of, in a sense, you've already brought it up. It is important to have a community within the space, right? It's not like here's a product, buy it. It's like we want to hear your thoughts. We want to make you feel like you're part of our family. So I
For
think
sure.
it's great. And shouts out to Ben on that end. Awesome, awesome. So we have another call in as well. Shouts out to Ken. Ken, hopping by. Hey, how's it going?
Ooh,
Oh, hello.
hello.
I'm Ken from Assembly State. I'm a marketing major, so yeah, I'm very interested in learning more from Emily and Sky, even just Sky. So for my question, so Emily, you have developed quite the resume over the times with that you experienced as a marketing manager, or even some other jobs that you might have been related to. I'm just curious as to, as someone that has again been in the job scenery for quite a bit, what do you think would you give to a aspiring marketing major to put in to do for their resume? Like, yeah.
Hmm, that's a great one. And I am going to reveal a secret here. So everyone who like listens in, this is something that actually I've got to give the credit to my roommate, Sarah. She and I were talking about, and it's so important in marketing to show what makes you unique as a marketer, but also like your creativity and how you approach any project. And so our what we had talked about was adding like a QR code with like a highlight reel to something like a resume. Of course, you want to link that type of stuff on your LinkedIn, but having a QR code with like a digital portfolio, and kind of passing that over like on a resume, how cool, where somebody could just like scan your resume. First of all, it's going to catch their attention, in that, wow, there's a QR code on here, I wonder where it goes. And then it links to your digital portfolio where they can see what you've been doing and how you've been presenting yourself and working on your projects. It's just, I've got to give the credit to my roommate there. It's pretty innovative.
That sounds pretty innovative for sure. I do have a concern though, that I know as some traditional companies wouldn't like that QR code, correct? Even though it's very interesting, they might think that it's very unprofessional, quote unquote.
Hmm.
How do you feel about like a balance between both of them? Like, do you think that you should, if they believe that way, that you should just ignore it? That's just not maybe not the right company for you, or do you believe that you should still have a traditional resume for companies like that?
Well, I definitely think that the something like a QR code and a digital portfolio should be a supplement to a traditional resume. Like, we should not be foregoing traditional resumes in order to do like something completely digital and out of the box. So for sure, you want to have that traditional resume as well. But links to those type of things also work, where you're linking like you can build a website for free and showcase your work there. Even if that work is as simple, I want to say simple, that's not the right word, but even if it's just like work that you've done on social media, and posts that you've done, campaigns that you've kind of done in your own way that you market yourself, things on there, like there's so much that you do as an individual to present yourself to the world that you could be considering to add a personal touch and a personal flair to how you're presenting yourself to these companies. I want to give you like a funny example. When I was interviewing for Laser, they asked us to come in with a sales pitch, like to basically make up a company in your brain and give that company a sales pitch. So when I walked in, I introduced myself. I had a couple of slides about me, and then my third or fourth slide was just like a computer emoji with like a giant picture of guacamole in the middle. And I just told them, like, if you hire me, just know that like when you walk by my desk, my background is going to be like this giant picture of guacamole. And everybody was laughing. So like adding a personal flair, to the way that you present yourself to a company, I think will always pay off, because it helps them see you as an individual and what sets you apart from the competition, outside of like just a very plain black and white resume.
Okay, that definitely could see that. Uh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much, Ken. And Emily, I think that's awesome. And I think it's really interesting as well, because when people are writing their resumes, right, we've always been taught like just add in your experiences and your education and that's it. But it's like, how do you set yourself apart from your competition, whether it's a QR code, like you said. I've seen a really cool ideas of people, creating their own websites and saying like these are all the projects and portfolios. I think my question, just to follow up with Ken's, is um, what do you recommend in terms of, adding into your portfolio aside from your past experience? How do you set yourself aside from, hey, these are the campaigns I've worked on? Yeah.
Yeah, I am on this like personal flair train in my mind, which is such a funny way to put it. Um, but like setting yourself apart is just so important. And so something that I like always, if ever anyone ever asks me like for my best career advice, it's got to be transferable skills and understanding the skill set that you have. Having the self-awareness as well to understand your own weaknesses and things that maybe you should stay away from when you're presenting, like for the first time, or things that you can challenge yourself to work on, of course, over time. But those transferable skills, like I was interviewing for a sales program as someone with degrees in video game design and singing. And so how did they hire me for this sales program? I was able to tell them that, well, when I was singing on a weekly basis in front of my peers and being critiqued on something as vulnerable as singing, like I really take constructive feedback well. And if there's a problem, like I'm not afraid to like address that head on and understand that like the attack's not coming at me, like if something has gone wrong, and just like be able to course correct and do that kind of a thing. So there are plenty of things, like we're all multifaceted individuals, so there's so much that makes you unique. So thinking about your own passions and interests and hobbies and realizing ways that those passions and hobbies will translate to a work environment, and being able to speak confidently about those things is so important. So I think that's really, if you don't have relevant experience, especially, it's crucially important to be able to tell an interviewer or someone looking at your resume that I've done this other thing that doesn't really relate, but I know enough about your job that you're hiring for or about your company to know that it will benefit you in this way.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. Thank you. We're gonna dive into another text question from Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much for asking this question. But is there anything that surprised you when starting out your role as a gaming strategic marketing?
Yeah, I felt like at first, especially, I was, diving into the deep end, having my marketing ops experience and my gaming experience on like a personal and education level, but never before like marrying the things together. So I had to learn really quickly how to develop those skills of like what we talked about earlier, of like rallying all of the different groups within your company or like even externally, and figuring out best communication styles. Like I just remember it being really overwhelming at first and surprising in the way that I hadn't thought about those aspects before, and like how much I would need to be doing that in my job. So not necessarily like shocking, surprising, but just like needed to take a breather at first, like a little overwhelming, and needed to hone those skills in order to like just do my job effectively and be able to collaborate with others.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well. Kathy also has another question for you. What do you wish knew about in the gaming industry after you graduated college?
Mm, what do I wish I knew about? Honestly, at the time that I graduated college, 2017, esports were certainly a thing. They were alive and thriving. But to be honest, at that very moment in time, I was not super plugged into esports. Of course, I was familiar with games. I knew how to make games in a sense. I really struggle with like programming, but it's a team effort. And so I learned all of that, and I loved gaming, but there was so much for me to learn about esports in general. And so when coming out of college and like coming into Lenovo in general, and then of course like coming into our partnership and understanding the way that like the technology industry interacts with the esports industry, and those being endemic to one another and having so much crossover, like there was so much for me to learn. There's still so much for me to learn. So thankfully, like I said, everyone has been so helpful in helping me to learn and to understand, and making sure that there are no glaring knowledge gaps.
Yeah, and I guess I want to follow up with that as well. Just knowing esports it's a titan. It's a huge thing to tackle on. But I wanted to get your thoughts. How did you, learn more about esports? How did you, find the resources to be like, okay, this is what, you know, League is, this is what Apex is. I'd like to get your thoughts there. And, basically for other people who are interested in esports but aren't too well versed in that side.
Yeah, a really good question, because I feel like sometimes there's that fear of like, I don't fully understand, and so then I can't chime into the conversation. So first of all, it's so important to put that fear aside and get involved in the conversation regardless. Part of it was definitely just consuming the content, like pushing all of the tweet notifications to my phone and just constantly being involved and informed on like what TSM as an org is doing, because that's of course so important to my day-to-day job as well. But then what the influencers and streamers themselves are doing, what the competition is doing, and what our competitors are even doing. So all of that like organic, I'll call it, research on my own, like definitely was part of it. But I have to just give the biggest shout out to Mark Hubbard for being like my esports mentor. Like he taught me so much about esports. He teaches me new things every day. Such an amazing person to work with. So his friendship and his willingness to help me has been just such a blessing. And then of course, like I said, that everyone at TSM, the partnership managers, and making sure that not only I understand what's going on, but also like our executives understand what's going on. Because of course I'm plugged into gaming. I know about all of the games. I'm playing the games, and I know about this industry. But our executives, they're important people who've got crazy big jobs, and they're not necessarily plugged into this scene. So they don't really always have an understanding up front of like the different metrics that we're looking at, or what we're doing with influencers, or why what we're doing is so important. And so being able to then collaborate and work together to explain that to leadership is so important too. So everyone, like I said, has just been so helpful and so wonderful to work with.
Yeah, I think it's amazing too, just the sense of community that you brought up as well. Like the fact that everyone is like, hey, like, let me help you in terms if you want to learn about this streamer or, about this specific game or esports, whatever it is. So it's great being able to have that sense of, you know, uh, togetherness to be able to help, each other out. So I think that's cool. I think that's awesome too. Cause honestly, like, even if you've been in the space for 10 years or, even 5 years or 2 years, like there's so much to tackle on in esports. It's a huge ecosystem and there's so many intricacies within them. So yeah, I think that's great. We have another text question from Kathy. Thank you again for these awesome questions. As someone who also studies at HPU, is there anything that you were taught in college that stood out to you the most?
Well, first of all, hey, go Panthers. So lame. But hey, great to hear from you. Yes, absolutely. My like standout favorite class that I took at High Point was Games and Identity. And it was taught by an amazing professor, Dr. Chris Bell, huge plug for her as well. And we just studied every aspect of how different identities are represented within games. What makes those identities representation like good for people who are playing games. And I want to back it up for a second. Games are so immersive that you don't even realize on a subconscious level that you're building, you're creating biases in your mind just because that's what we do as humans about what you're seeing and what you're interacting with. And so it's so important for games to get that right. So we examined every angle of like what makes people unique, first of all, and what people identify with, what they consider their key identifiers, and even went as deep as to identify the difference between like players and gamers and how people identify themselves within the gaming ecosystem. And so we study the different identities in games, how people were being represented, and how that could be harmful or how that could be helpful to those people. So I just will say it was like the most transformative class that I took at High Point. It has carried into my career, everything that I learned in that class, and has made me in like my own sense, like a champion of diversity, just because I can't think of a better word. But you know what I mean? It's something that I always carry with me. Keeping in mind like diversity and inclusion is so important, especially in this industry. So 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah, exciting. Just to add one final note as we wrap up today's Q&A, thank you first and foremost. Thank you all the questions that have been funneling, all the voice callers that came in. You have made this Q&A very, very exciting. So thank you. Thank you so much there. Emily, I'd love to just get like a quick, snippet of maybe shout outs that you want to give, or maybe some thoughts or whatever it is to everyone who's watching or listening in today.
Oh my goodness. Well, big shout out to the TSM team that I'm working with on a daily basis. You guys are the best. Our weekly calls, we call them Wind Up Wednesdays. We customize that based on which day of the week it is. It's always an alliteration, but we just have the best time together. So shouts out to you guys, and shouts out to the friends who are watching. Thank you guys for the support. But yeah, man, let's like do some cool stuff with Legion this year. We've got some really exciting stuff in the works. Of course, we're going on year 3 of our partnership with TSM. We're still doing Apex Legends, and the world is kind of returning to normal, kind of. So we've got some cool stuff in the works for later in the year. So stay tuned, and I'm excited to see you guys at some events.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you for your time as well. Just to give you guys a heads up for next week, we'll have Walter Wang at TSM, the VP of Operations. He will be at the main event or conversation at our Q&A next week on Wednesday, July 7th. So ask some questions. Think of anything cool you want to ask about Walter or about the role itself. So put that on your schedules, write that down, and we'll touch base very soon, guys. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.